These films have strongly impacted the lives of so many.
Zack's movies hold a special place in my heart.
I would literally not be here without Zack's movies.
And I love the way he visualizes his stories.
When I'd watch it, it served as a friend and it brought me to another world where I can forget about all my problems.
Man of Steel's exploration of the theme of chance, of choice, and free will is the reason I'm pursuing a career in astrophysics.
You get so empowered by it. It's amazing.
And because of this movie, I was able to meet such extraordinary and incredibly talented people.
It also gave me a group of friends that helped me become the best version of myself.
And what's better than friendship?
Snyder Cut is more than a movie. It's a movement.
A monument that represents unity at its truest. You have fans coming together as one from all over the world, uniting, coming together and taking a stand for mental health and suicide awareness.
He's done so much good for people and raised so much money for AFSP.
AFSP is literally a lifesaver.
A film about a bunch of misfits uniting for a common goal ended up inspiring just that.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our panel. So basically, our panel is basically how Justice League and the Snyderverse have had so many impacts on people's mental health. And these movies, these characters, the whole release and Snyder Cut movement has changed people's lives and saved them. And it's spectacular how impactful these movies are. You know, I just want to start off by introducing myself. I'm Matteo at the Fusioner on Twitter, and I guess one thing that drove me to want to do this is that it's just been so passionate, the journey from 2016 to now of the just getting into that world and just how that affected me in my life. And I want to share that, you know, I want to hopefully this can be positive and because it's just amazing how these movies have changed many lives. And yeah.
Hi, I'm Morgan or Jax. It's funny because I actually, even with the AFSP advocacy and all of that aside, I could and have write essays on everything that Zack Snyder and his movies have meant to me for pretty much the greater majority of my life that I can actually remember. And not even just in terms of like my depression and anxiety, that kind of thing, but also just on a fundamental level, like who I am as a person was affected by Zack and his movies in huge ways.
Yeah, and like that's why we're here, right? And it's just I think it's important to share. And I think we need to normalize this kind of speaking up, right? And like that's what almost these movies have done for me. Like it's normal to feel these emotions. It's normal to have those feelings and to seek help, like Clark did with his mom. And I just love that the films and the movement itself with the AFSP, how that works, it's powerful that you're not alone. We're not alone. Like just that billboard in Justice League, like it says, it's just.
As an aside about that billboard, I love that like in World, it seems like a reappropriation of Zod's terrifying message. I really appreciate that, but it's almost literally taking something from a very dark moment and, you know, turning it into something beautiful and meaningful.
Yeah. I love that part. It was just like, you're not alone. Like it was introduced in Man of Steel. And I just want to know, what was it like watching for Man of Steel for the first time?
Well, I'm pretty sure I saw it opening weekend in 3D because I had begged and wheedled my mom about it for weeks. I was on my best behavior so that she would say yes, right? Because I grew up with Superman, but for a long time, the character and what he represented was kind of poisoned for me just from some of my own personal relationships. And then out of the blue, there was just I think it was the first like character poster that we got for the Superman, right? That was like flicking a switch back on. That was just like I need to have more of this right now. And when I saw it in theaters, there was some stuff that I didn't really pick up on because just between my autism and the fact that I was 14, there was just some stuff that went over my head, right? But I remember there was a specific moment that like it felt like I had come back to life in the theater. That's how excited I got over this movie. That was the most excited I'd been about anything in years, just because of my own struggles with depression and all that. At the time, I was dealing with like really bad dissociative episodes. The most that I was actually like feeling in a day was when I was fighting with my brother, which was, anger and just all of that negative stuff that you don't want to feed into that too much. And then out of the blue, we see this character who's like struggling to find his place in the world, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to protect, his mom. You don't want to mess with his mom because he's going to get pissed. But just all of that together, and just the fact that like I kind of had a negative quantity of positive male influences in my life, that was like the perfect storm for me to just reach out and just grab it with both hands, right? Yeah, that was Man of Steel was a big game changer for me in a lot of ways.
Yeah. For me, you mentioned how you watched it in a big IMAX 3D screen. I watched it on a road trip to Ottawa on a little DVD player. I got it from the library, and like I hadn't really known much about the movie other than it was a Superman movie. I mean, as a kid, I just knew Superman. He was just this kind of action figure character. I didn't really look into him that much more than just being that hero.
It's
But
kind of one of those things where it's like the Superman is just he's really powerful and that's about it, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. But like for me, so when I had watched Man of Steel, I was about grade 4, and I had been dealing with some of my own issues regarding emotions, and I didn't know how to feel in certain situations. I'd feel confused and like like especially with like you mentioned that the negative male influence is that you're a guy, you can't feel emotions, you can't cry, and I'd repress all that in, and I guess in a way always thought like I hadn't known that it's normal to express emotions, and I just it was very emotionally stressing for me. So then Man of Steel comes along, and it just hit on a personal level. I'm like, the strongest guy in the world, the strongest being in the universe feels these emotions, and it just hit me on a personal level. So it's like it taught me it's okay to feel that way, and it's just like not everyone's perfect, and it was just this portrayal that like I just love that even the strongest being can be absolutely mentally, emotionally just lost and confused, and that's the thing that had impacted me the most when I first watched that. I was like, wow, this because I remember I went to my mom after watching it, I'm like, wow, this movie was powerful, and it was just special seeing actually this giant hero having emotions, and I think that had a big impact on me and who I was at that time.
Yeah, another thing kind of in that same vein as far as Man of Steel and in terms of like mental struggles, it was well, this comes up in my pinned tweet, but I don't think there's anything that could have inspired me more than watching Superman stand up under literally like a world-crushing force and say no, and he defeats it anyways. Like that is literally him constantly being beaten down by something stronger than him and still standing back up and trying again and succeeding or trying until he succeeds. Which I was only like 14 at the time, but like not to get too heavy on this, but like I was deeply suicidally depressed when Man of Steel came along. And I mean, I'm not saying it cured my depression or anything, but like that moment was, it was something very powerful for me as a child, was seeing like that was an insurmountable force, and he was still like, and he said it in the movie, he was like, I'm not gonna let that stop me from trying, right?
Yeah, yeah. And like also for a superhero movie, right? It's that you've never seen this dramatic and very up close take on the character and his emotional struggle. So that itself is that it was a very different take. Well, at least for me, this is like one of the first superhero movies I've seen where this a character like this had such emotional struggles, and also it's just an interesting film take on Superman. So I really like that, and that goes into Batman vs Superman, right? So like,
most polarizing of all of them.
exactly. So like that one was hyped like crazy. So I want to know, like, from your personal experiences, what was it like re-entering the Snyderverse again and embarking onto Batman vs Superman? Did it help you get through anything you were struggling with during that period of time?
Definitely, without question. I just because of my autism, I have a lot of difficulty like self-actualizing things about who I am as a person. So I tend to need little nudges along the way to at least kind of get my thinking on the right track. So I mean, Man of Steel technically started that because at 14, I didn't really know what to make of what I thought about Clark Kent beyond just, oh hey, the actor who plays him is pretty attractive. But when it really started, like the gears started turning for me, was actually the training sequence that Batfleck does when he's getting ready to fight Superman. On top of just being a teenager, it was also the fact that once again I couldn't figure out if I wanted to look like that more or be with that more. And so I started working out, and the funny thing, I didn't realize that the working out was helping with my dysphoria, because I didn't realize I was dealing with dysphoria until it got to the point that my friends, who are also trans, my two best friends, had to basically sit me down and be like, Morgan, wanting to be a man is a symptom of being a man. And that was, at that point, I'd been working out for a few months, and I was starting to get that tone and figuring out, it's like, oh, hey, it's not just the muscle definition and stuff. I do actually kind of want to look like that, which, again, it's not like I'm saying it magically solved all my problems, but that's even just those little nudges in the right direction to help me figure out who I am. I wouldn't have been here now without those. Like, another big contender for me that most people haven't really been talking about as much recently with the Snyder Cut and all that coming out is Sucker Punch, which that's another really, really polarizing one for a lot of reasons. But in my experience, from the first time I watched it and every time beyond then, it taught me that, like, no matter what happened to me, no matter who did what to me in my life, they couldn't take my power away from me if I didn't let them. And that, from like the fundamental teenage years until now, that has been a very important lesson that I've had to kind of keep teaching myself. Because when any kind of traumatic thing does happen, if it's, for some people, the automatic thing is like, well, it must have been my fault. I must have caused that somehow. It must have been whatever, right? So it's having that kind of reminder that, like, it is your life and your choices, and nothing that anyone does to hurt you can take that away from you. That was so much for me as a teenager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. For me, Batman vs Superman, when that came out, so I had just started high school, and I guess from that grade 4 period, things just got worse emotionally. And at that time, in 2016, I just felt, even more lost in the world. It's like, just like I would kind of obsess, like, what's the purpose? Like, why am I here? Like, it's just, I would I would have episodes where I just feel down and depressed. And it was just like I was stuck in those moods. And, when Batman vs Superman came out, like, I was just the low point. And when I had seen that movie in theaters, like I think thematically it didn't really impact me that much then, but like the overall take on the movie, and it was just so deconstructive, so stylistic, so everything. It was beautiful. It was like glorious, and it was like one of the most ambitious and different movies I had seen in theaters in a long time. And when I got out of the theater, I was no longer obsessing over the feelings of, existence and depression. I was obsessing over how good this movie was. And and I know it's a weird thing to say, but
Oh,
like it
absolutely
changed.
not.
It just changed my overall um thought, and it was nice to just have that. And it was just also nice that, just again seeing that Superman thing, like he expressed these feelings of humanness again in these movies, right? It kind of inspired me to be more interested in film in a way. And it's just, again, over that time when Batman and Superman came out, I was just always obsessed over it, and it just helped me. Like it was almost there like a friend in a way. It was just glorious, and like I'd always notice something each time I'd watch it, and it just always felt fresh.
We've got our third member. Say hi to Darius.
Awesome. We got our third member here, Darius. So the question I guess we can get into is that now we all had that unpopular opinion of positivity towards Batman and Superman when everyone else hated it. And like we were the odds ones out that liked it. And like I felt very alienated with that. And I was just, all my friends hated it. And I was just there like, oh, I thought it was kind of good. And it was to the point where I'd internalize it. I would hide it out. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, it's an okay movie, but deep down, I love it. It's almost like this movie is bad and it's automatically bad. You should know that it's bad, even though I love it, but I just internalized it. So I'm just curious for you folks, like what was that like with being in that unpopular opinion towards Batman versus Superman?
I mean, it wasn't exactly a new feeling for me. I've always been kind of an easy target for having the niche or childish interests, right? In that regard, it wasn't anything new that like this thing that I happen to love was something that people happen to hate. And also given my one of my older brothers had this thing where if I liked anything, he automatically hated it. So yeah, it wasn't exactly anything new for me to be on the quote unquote wrong side of history in that regard. But man, if it wasn't exhausting.
Yeah, I have a very interesting history with BVS. So I saw it in theaters, of course, and I walked away liking it, but like at the time I was so fixated on like Rotten Tomatoes and like just listening to critics and stuff. And when I watched the film, yeah, I enjoyed it, but like in the in the back of my mind, I liked it, but obviously due to general public and stuff. I saw BVS in theaters like opening weekend and stuff. I loved it, of course, but like I think I said that I relatively like was the only one that actually enjoyed it, like loved it enough, and basically all of my friends and like everyone else bashing it, saying, "Oh yes, obviously it's a horrible movie. Definitely doesn't deserve any praise. They did Batman wrong, which is typically something that we all hear that Batman was done wrong." Everyone was basically saying like, "Oh yeah, Civil War did it better." It took me a few years to really like gain the love that I have for it now. Like it's one of my comfort movies now. Like, but overall, I really did have an interesting journey with this movie because like I saw it once in theaters. I only seen the theatrical cut once, which is just when I saw it in theaters and stuff. And ever since then, everyone strictly just watched Ultimate Edition. So yeah, it was. I think that's pretty much how like my journey with BVS happened. I think
something I don't think I mentioned is I actually saw the theatrical cut of Batman vs Superman 8 times.
That's awesome in theaters. Yeah. We were all in that small group, and I would even like I know they were obviously joking, but like a lot of people would kind of make fun of me at school for liking Batman or Superman. But I guess that kind of added on to that feeling of being alone and being alienated. So by the time the Snyder Cut movement started, even before that for me, is I saw Dave Pena, Film Junkie's video on Batman vs Superman. I remember scrolling through YouTube and I see the thumbnail. I'm like, oh God, please don't let this be another slander video on Batman vs Superman. So I see it and I'm like, oh, shit, I'm not the only one that likes this movie. That's awesome. So I was just wowed that I wasn't alone, and I started to find a community. And then Justice League came out, so I think we were all out of walking that there's like, well, okay, they're probably going to release the director's cut on Blu-ray, right? And they didn't, obviously. But then, like, when the Snyder Cut movement started, it was honestly to see people else wanting to cut. It was just this reassuring feeling of community, and we're not alone with this stuff, and it's just added on to that feeling of being belonged.
After being literally gaslit by journalists and critics and bloggers and God knows who else for years for liking these movies, it was such a unique, refreshing validation to be like, oh,
Exactly.
there are people who want this. I'm not crazy.
I had that feeling in experience with like Man of Steel also, because everyone is so hung up on the whole Christopher Reeves nostalgic. Like, obviously, pretty much everyone loves Christopher Reeves nostalgic movies and stuff. It's just the thing is, I said I really love Man of Steel, and everyone looked at me like I was a madman, basically. Because people really do look at people like us, I guess, like very weird and like an outsider and stuff when we say that we really enjoyed his movies. Like, I don't know why. Like, everyone else can watch a director's movies and say that they love them, and when we say we love Zach movies, we are considered domestic terrorist or insult or just God knows what else we can think of, because we've been called it all, basically.
Exactly. And to add on to that, right, is that we were these outsiders, and just finding other outsiders it was just emotionally rewarding. And it was just so awesome finding other people like me, like I said earlier. And for me, I was very, very lucky that I found a group of wonderful people who were making a fan edit for Justice League. And I just started talking with one of the members, and he just randomly brought me upon the fan edit team. And I just found these amazing people. And during that time also, I had felt, again, it was still during the high school period after Justice League came out, and I had been struggling with finding friends and who to talk to, when I'm doing nothing. And that group, it was just so awesome being able to talk with them, because it gave me something to do. It gave me something to not, like I mentioned before, the obsessive thing, because I have OCD. So like I like my mind would always obsess over depressive thoughts, but this, like, I would jump into these movies, and it gave me like this kind of comforting feeling, like I'm not alone, right? And I'm just so grateful to have had this community connection. And I was just wondering if you guys have had any like gratifying experiences of like how the community itself has helped you.
Yeah, for sure. I have really met some wonderful people like you all, of course. It made me think of myself a lot more like something bigger than myself, obviously, with like AFSP. Basically, I'm willing to donate and like spread the word and stuff as much as I can. It just feels nice to be a part of something that is like literally saving lives.
It's unprecedented.
It truly is. And like, look at the deck of all of it. I think Nicotina set up one thing I can't say that was truly gratifying about being in this movement and this community as a whole was when the Nerd Queens had their League of Mayhem panel, and Zach came on, and Amanda, she was, adding up all the numbers and stuff, and like, I don't know what got into me or anything, but when Amanda told Zach that we crossed the $500,000, I think that was one of the like genuine happiest moments I think I could ever experience in this movement. Like, it was truly something powerful to see. Like, we done all this hard work, and now we're still, continuing on with the goal. But it just felt nice to be a part of something bigger than yourself, honestly. And like, I always tell people, like, this movie was always more than just about the movie itself. It's about the journey, about the friends that we have made, about the lessons we learned. It's like, we're having people join us in the sun saying, like, wow, we fought for this film, and now everyone is saying, like, we want more. Like, it's truly something very inspirational,
Mhm.
heartfelt. It's like a combat kid like underdog story. We went
Mhm.
from one of the most hated like fan bases to
We
now
went
we're
from being the butt of the joke to being the guys who won.
and people are finally see that Zach actually had a plan, and he was really the only person that had a plan from the start. So like now they're listening to us saying like, oh yeah, we want more too. So
And I mean, as far as the Snyder Cut campaigning and all of that goes, I gotta admit, I was not very involved in it until 2019, I think in the fall of 2019, just before we did the big global trending event. And then just out of nowhere, I was like, wait, there's a what's this release the Snyder Cut thing? Which that was another thing that like it's been this weirdly consistent pattern where anytime that I like really need help, I guess, in that sense,
Mhm.
something from Zack Snyder comes along and it's just like, boop, hi. So in this case, it was the Snyder Cut stuff because I think I was like freshly out of college. I was dealing with a lot of mental health stuff. I was between jobs, just a lot of bad, right? And then it was this that was like, wait, hang on. This seems like this could actually go somewhere if we keep on doing this. And then the trending event happened. So it was kind of that exact same feeling of just I had been so alone, right? Like just mentally and even interpersonally with people I know, I was very isolated. And then it was like, oh, you mean there was actually supposed to be a good Justice League movie coming out of that? Are you sure? And then, you know, it picked up steam and I started making connections and I'm not saying that like my depression is magically cured or anything like that, but as a person, I feel like I'm much happier and much better for it for having found
Agreed.
this community. Because I mean, of course, like we've definitely seen that this fandom has its little pricks here and there, but as a whole, and like just from the people that I have actually connected with and gotten close to personally, this movement has been something absolutely incredible that like
Exactly.
I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Even if like it's just even if the movie doesn't even come out, even if look at all the work, like look at the lie, like Zach said, even this has changed lives regardless of the movie coming out. Like the connections, that's another thing that's just so important to the Snyder Cut movement. Like this whole chain of events of everything, the whole movement, like literally changed the course of my life and the people I met. And it's insane, like how one
Absolutely.
movie can do this, and it's more than a movie. It's it's more than a movie. Like this thing is just absolutely more than a movie. And I'm like I said, I'm just so grateful for
Oh,
the connections.
I've been trying to restrain myself from going, you know, getting on my soapbox about everything that like the movie itself, let alone the movement and like the charity and all that. The movie itself, I could talk for
Yeah.
hours
I
about
got
what
I
that
got some
means to
things on my
me.
paper on that.
Yeah, because for literally as far back as I can remember, I have always wanted a Justice League movie, right? I I can't even put to words the like relief and gratification of watching Zack Snyder's Justice League and feeling that fulfillment of like this is the movie. This is the movie I've been waiting for literally my whole life.
like I saw the Christopher Reeve movies, but like I was like really young, so I didn't really like have any memories of those. But like since I was so heavily invested in Smallville, that was like my first like real time like seeing like a live action Justice League like form. And like ever since then, like after I watched that, I said like, why isn't there a Justice League movie? And luckily, like obviously, you know, with 2017 leading up into it, I was really hyped because I watched the Comic Con trailer and all that. After that, I think most of us probably did, obviously, with the Comic Con trailer. But like, as soon as I heard that, like, saw that Debbie and Zach was stepping down, my gut was telling me, like, I had this gut feeling, like something was not right after that. Because
I
if
had
you
that
ask me, oh yeah,
too. I tried to ignore it.
I think honestly, um, when AFSP became integral to the movement, that was powerful
oh yeah,
because, like we've mentioned, the the way the movies have affected our mental health and positively affected it. when like I can't even imagine how Zach must have been when with Autumn. Like it's heartbreaking. The fact that he this was turned this tragic event was turned into the AFSP and the fundraising. It's just emotional, and like I can't even imagine how the Snyders feel with all this. And it's just like during that period of, when AFSP, like during that period of 2017 2021, like there was a lot of talk with just mental health and suicide prevention within the community. And like, and during that time I wasn't my best, but I constantly think like you're here for a reason. You have a purpose in life, and just go out. I kept on because I have like Snyder wall, and I used to have a Snyder wall, and I just look at that, and I just like, I'm a part of this movement, and this movement is about living life, and that you have a purpose. And so when I look at that wall and I think about everything, it warmed my body, and it just gives me purpose. And it was just like, again, just that feeling of not being alone. It's just, I'm here for a reason. And that's something that felt powerful for me in this movement. And that's something that's how this movement has affected so many lives around the world of just, you're not alone. You're here for a reason.
Just as an aside,
speak up.
Mm-hmm. It's backwards in my camera, but this does say you are not alone.
I love that. And to add on to that, like, what was it like for you folks when the AFSP had become part of the movement, that this whole suicide talk became a part of the movement? And like, especially since it was already something personal that you had gone through, what was that like when that became an integral part of the movement?
Just between my own struggles with suicidal thoughts and like I've lost count of the number of people I've lost to suicide over the years. It was something that like that in and of itself felt very impactful to me, that like Zach was getting involved with like a suicide prevention charity. And then this is going to sound kind of weird, but it was almost like a sense of kinship, I guess, with him, because like that's one of those things that's like, that changes you. When you lose someone to suicide, that's going to change you forever, like in some form or another. And so, I mean, it was just kind of like that, again, coming back to like, you are not alone, and just the feeling of like other people are in fact dealing with a lot of these same struggles that you are, even if they're, a big budget Hollywood movie director.
To piggyback off of what Jax was saying in a way, I can like relate a lot to AFSP and like Zach and stuff. I lost 2 friends from like high school within like less than roughly a year apart. Like one died on 9/11, and then the other died like May 5th or still around there. So like less, and it's like always something that has always been in the forefront of my mind, and always like, because you always think about the what ifs and what could have been different and what could have changed, what could have been prevented. Because when you lose someone to suicide, like those are always those questions like the what if. And like learning that Zach and Debbie lost Autumn to suicide is like, for some reason it just drew me closer to just the movement and the fan base. And like for some reason, like I have this thing like where like I want to believe that like in a way all this hard work that we're doing with AFSP and like raising the money and like raising awareness and stuff, like it gave me a sense of like righting the wrongs that I did not really know that like I did, because I wasn't there for the people that I lost and stuff. So I also had struggled with, like I had this one very like bad toxic friendship. Like I was clinging on for some reason, like to a person that like was just so negative. I don't know why. Like the person was just so toxic for me. Like everyone knows, like I'm a relatively positive person. I always try to look for the better things and do like more positive things and stuff. So like I had struggled with like the suicidal thoughts too. Like I thought I was worthless and stuff until like I really became involved with this movement and meeting you all and stuff like that. It's like it showed me like life can get better at the same time, while like you may be losing like all these other people that you thought were your friends, but you actually found people that connects with you like in a way that had never connected before, where like we're able to have these deep conversations and like talk about what we love and how it impact us. Like honestly, that's why I'm always truly grateful for the fandom, for the movement, for Zach, Debbie, the Snyders. Like I always tell people, like the movie was never just about just the movie itself; it's the journey that we have been on all along. And like another way, like I always try to honor like the loved ones that I like, the friends and stuff I lost from suicide, and think about them and stuff. I think I hope I'm not the only one that does this, but I sit through the credits after the four autumn for Zack Snyder Justice League. I always like, no matter what, I sit through the credits to listen to Hallelujah. And like honestly, Hallelujah has became one of my favorite songs also due to the movie and due to it being Autumn's favorite song also.
Beautifully
And
said that.
just to kind of piggyback off of you, Darius, as far as like that feeling of community when you're losing people around you through one way or another, that's another thing that I definitely can identify with, just for a different, but mostly different reason. Because just with my commitment to like living my life as my own person, I have had to burn some bridges that I'd rather I didn't have to, right? But just for the sake of my own mental health and like progress as a human, there's some people that I haven't spoken to in well over a year, right? And when some of those people are like close family connections and that kind of thing, that frankly it fucking hurts, right? So I mean, I don't think I would I don't think I would have been able to cope with that as well as I did without a group like this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is, yeah, it's just insane. Like, just thinking about it emotionally, like, there have been times where I just sat and I've literally cried of just, wow, like, this movement is so powerful. And, like, I didn't want to go in depth before, but since you folks have been so comfortable with it, like, I didn't say the word exactly, but, like, those suicidal thoughts, those were things that I had. And we need to remember that, like I said before, we're here for a purpose. To the folks watching this, you're here for a purpose, and people love you. You, I don't know how to say it. It's just,
you are not alone. That's the important thing.
Exactly. Like,
even if it doesn't feel like it, there are people out there that care about you.
Exactly.
I can speak from experience that it really doesn't always feel like it. But you are loved and appreciated and cared for.
Exactly. And yeah, it's just like I said before, like when I'd have those thoughts, I just look at that wall and I just remind myself of that. So this whole movement just kept giving me hope, and it just kept on reminding me that you were here for a reason. And that's why I just hold this movement to a heart. Like, I don't care if we got the movie. Like, that's just an extra reward, but the fact that it was something I had that would just feed this amazing energy. And especially when actually watching the movies, like I said, Batman vs. Superman, I've seen that so many times. Always, whenever I'd watch that movie, right, it's just like, it just felt so fulfilling, and it just felt satisfying. Like, when I watched it in November, I actually cried after watching it, because it's so beautiful. The film's message of growth and change. I just love Bruce's arc. He's literally the bad guy in the movie, and the guy he hated who sacrifices himself, and even Superman himself in the movie, he did feel, that those suicidal tendencies. But like
that whole thing where he goes like, it did on my world doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
going from that to like within like an hour of movie, but going from that to going, this is my world, you are my world, even just that arc in and of itself was so important, because again it comes back to like, what am I doing here? What the hell is my purpose? Why?
Yeah. And Bruce finds his purpose through him, the guy he hated, and I just find that beautiful. And
especially because he was in the dark for so long, like because of either between the death of Robin and just how long he was stuck in Gotham, right? And then just having him go from, if there's even a 1% chance that he's our enemy, to saying men are still good, and we fight, we kill, we betray one another, but we can rebuild.
Exactly.
I had to end the quote on that line because that's the optimism part when it comes back in.
And to add on to that payoff through quotes, I think one of my favorite parts that made me cry the most when I watched it in November was there's in the part where when that 1% chance scene, like he's like, Bruce is like, we've seen what promises are worth. He's like, like they're worth, like he just says they're worth nothing, right? And the thing with the promises that I just love that payoff where he sees the humanity in Superman. He sees that this guy is more human than he is. And after he picks him up, he lifts him up off the ground. He's like, Martha won't die tonight. And that's a promise. And it's beautiful.
Ethical. I failed him in life, but I won't fail him in death.
His whole thing in ZSJL being like, I made a promise to him on his grave.
I just love that, like, the hope and the change. And that's something that this movement has brought. There's change. There's hope.
Look at all the Martha and Clark scenes. You can't tell me that doesn't have heart. Those are ways, and like the Man of Steel, Martha Clark scenes, like, are always hands down like the scenes that get me the most to cry. And here, like the scene where Jonathan, the flashback scene where Jonathan takes Clark to see the ship, and like Clark said, "Can I keep pretending to be your son?" And Jonathan says, "You are my son." And like that, like right there, like that's truly powerful. Like
and that hits even closer to home because both Chris Terrio and Zack Snyder have adopted children.
Yeah,
like
one of my favorite scenes. Obviously, it's just that line, just that specific scene alone, like shows the amount of heart, the love, the affection, all of it.
I think the character arcs in that movie are so powerful. In those movies, are so powerful. Whether it's Superman finding his place on Earth, Batman's inspiration from brokenness to hope, and Cyborg especially. That sense of displacement and brokenness in our world, and he his journey through Justice League is amazing. And I'm just curious for you folks, like what were the best emotional and most powerful arcs and themes in Zack Snyder's Justice League that affected you, or just like were just so emotional to you all?
As a disabled person, I've always kind of felt an attachment to Cyborg, even though I mean, as a kid, I didn't really classify myself as disabled because I didn't know or think that there was anything wrong with me. But I always just felt that attachment to Cyborg, right? So, and just from having kind of connected with Ray Fisher when he was still doing Twitch streams and all that, I was like super invested in this Cyborg's arc, right? But the two moments that really hit me was Victor's intro scene. He's saying, you know a lot about monsters, don't you? Especially how to make them. Which, given the whole Frankenstein's monster thing in Justice League, and then how he goes like, it's interesting, you thought I meant me. That was a very stark difference to me, that he was like, obviously, like as what he is in that moment, he feels like he's a monster. He doesn't feel like he's a human. He's a thing in his mind. And then going from that to defying the most, like, the oldest intelligences in the universe, in the known universe, and saying to them, I'm not broken and I'm not alone. Like, I've 13 viewings, I still cry. Like, that is so much to me. Is even if it's I mean, Cyborg is a disabled hero, obviously. But like and in the way that like Ray Fisher puts it, he's more or less differently abled, because he does function differently than like the averagely abled human, but he's also capable of much more than the average person. So I mean, I guess it would be in that vein more calling him differently abled, but it still was such a big thing for me because I do have mental disabilities that I deal with, and like having had to like argue with people and say like, no, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm not broken, and having him say that when, like, aside from the Trinity, Cyborg has honestly always meant so much to me. Like, when I was bullied a lot in elementary school, when I started dealing with anxiety about that, I would literally imagine the Teen Titans, but primarily Cyborg, walking me to school and kind of just giving me a pep talk. So like, that's always been a thing for me, was just I love Cyborg. And then Ray Fisher like dialed it up to 11 And now I'm just like, yeah, no, work life.
I can totally agree and relate to like the whole bullying in elementary and stuff. But yeah, Cyborg, his arc, as everyone knows, he's the heart of the story. He Ray's performance, I could see why he was so angry and upset that all of it was cut. Like, like when just the whole Doctor Stone and Victor scene, like those scenes are so powerful to me. Like because, like honestly, not just as like a black person, a black man as a whole, it's just like it's very rare that black people get like representation like this in a very positive manner to me, because like we're all so used to like either sidekicks or getting killed off in a horror movie very fast or something like that, and seeing this smart, well educated, like college taught family, and I tear up at the I'm not broken and I'm not alone also. But I it's very like powerful when you hear like these fake illusions of Victor's parents, Silas and Eleanor. Like when you hear Eleanor say, "We can make you whole again, my broken boy." Like I legit just tear up every single time when I hear that. It's like, am like was I broken before and like now I'm whole again now? Like thanks to like this fandom, this community, this like AFSC and stuff. Like all of it correlates in some way or another, and like we used to be like the outsiders. We were basically alone in a sense because we didn't really have like this fan base at this level where we could interact with each other on a daily basis and stuff. And just to look, Victor's arc alone is truly beautiful. Then with the epilogue with the father twice over, like how we hear Silas Stone say, I'm your father twice over because I brought you into the world and I brought you back to the world. Like that's truly powerful. And how basically when Silas say in the world of number ones and zeros, I think that's the line if I'm not mistaken. Like in the world of number
In the world of ones and zeros, you're the absolute master.
yeah, I love that line. Like you are an absolute master of like all this, and I think everyone truly loved the whole single mom waitress scene.
Mm,
That whole sequence with the single mom.
Amanda, she's great. It was. I'm not over it. She's amazing.
Yeah, I watched the League of Mayhem stream too. She didn't even. I think she didn't even. She said she saw the theatrical cut once. I think maybe, and she was like all confused, like why was I not in the movie or anything, knowing that she shot her scenes and stuff. And like, it's so rare that we see like this kind of representation, like alone, like of a hero, like helping someone like at that like lower level, like because we all know heroes destroy buildings and stuff. Like, yeah, you can get those buildings repaired and stuff, but what about like the actual people that lost their jobs, like become in poverty and stuff like that? Like that's the stuff that we don't see in these hero movies. Like that's one thing that like I can't say like that differentiate Zack Snyder's Justice League from any other comic book movie. Like seeing that
Yeah,
scene, like putting $100,000 into her bank account was like saying like like she personally saw how she was evicted. She was barely getting tips to live off of. Like,
and then she was giving those tips away to people who she perceived needed it more.
yeah, like I have like that scene just means so much because like I know that not everyone's struggling like financially, but like personally for me, not has always been the easiest to like manage money and like keep stuff like that. But to see that scene, like wow, you can make a difference without even really like saving like a person that way like physically.
Well, I mean, I saw a comparison on Twitter. That moment of him like literally changing her life with a single gesture was like him reaching into a burning building to pull her out. That was a comparison I saw, which like she literally had like $11 in her bank account, and then she got $100,000 in her bank account. Like that is even with like two less zeros, that is a life-changing amount of money. And I mean, my mom was a single mom for a long time. She worked, I think, 3 jobs to take care of my brothers and I for a long time. So like that was another thing that really hit me hard, was seeing her, like, she's doing the best she can and she's still not making it out of that, you know? It was just like that's it can feel very defeating when you're like doing everything you can to get out of a bad situation and nothing's happening.
And I know, Jax, you have to go soon. So
Yeah.
is there anything else you want to just add before you leave? And I'll actually ask you the last question here. Just like overall, how do these films and movements save or change your life? What does Zack Snyder's Justice League mean to you? Why is there such a strong connection to this film's movements? Why does it
Why does it mean
why
this
does it
much
connect
to
to
me?
your identity? Identity. There it is.
Well, I mean, I kind of talked before about
Yeah.
my whole trans awakening thing. I literally wouldn't have figured this out without Zach's movies, I don't think. I don't think that's hyperbolic to say, just because I have a startling lack of self-awareness. But just aside from like the trans stuff, and honestly, there was some stuff that I was dealing with as far as internalized homophobia when I still thought I was a girl, because like, man, literally like every person that Zach casts ever is drop dead gorgeous in some capacity or another. So I was having a lot of conflicting feelings about just being absolutely in love with Wonder Woman and Lois Lane, because again, I thought I was a girl and I'd grown up in a house where that kind of thing was like, no, that's bad, I'm not supposed to do that. So it was more or less me being like, well, no, f you, I'm gonna do that even more now. So that was kind of like, on top of the trans stuff and on top of the mental health stuff, it was just quantifying and accepting more parts of who I am as a person, that like, there was the movies kind of, they nudged me along in the right direction when I needed them to. And I guess the last thing on that would be, jumping back to BVS for a second, Lex Luthor, and why he was being scary to me, which was, I, aside from just a lot of identity crises and stuff that I was dealing with as a teenager between the trans stuff and some like First Nation stuff, that kind of thing, I was dealing with a whole lot, and there was just a lot of resentment towards religion and God and all of that, just between the, you know, if you're gay, you're going to hell, all that bullshit, and just like my own stuff. I I actually was about in that same place mentally that Lex was, in terms of like resenting God, which I didn't realize that because I was a teenager and just kind of angry at a lot of things, right? And then like at the moment he said in my first viewing of BVS, when he said, if God is all powerful, he cannot be all good, and if he is all good, he cannot be all powerful, it felt like someone grabbed my skeleton and like shook me and went like, hey, wake the up, because that was the villain saying the thing that I had been thinking. And I was like, oh God. So it was like a moment of just realizing that like I had fallen off the tracks in a way, and I wanted to try and pull myself back up, because that was probably one of my darker moments as a teenager, was just that resentment of God and whatever I perceived he had or hadn't done in my life. So I mean, I think it was also pretty important for that to have come up as it did in the movie, because I mean, like I said, that was like a slap in the face.
What you've said the entire time is just beautiful and very well thought out, and it's just amazing how these films have affected you. And I just want to thank you for coming on and talking about this and feeling comfortable, especially for sharing these stories, since they're so personal. So I just want to thank you, and I hope you have a
Thank you for inviting me in. This is really cool.
Yeah, awesome. I'm very grateful that you have joined, and yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I guess we'll just finish off with the other things I had planned. So you had mentioned, right, Cyborg's story, and like I just want to say, like, the whole movie and a lot of the themes in Justice League, not even intentionally related to the movement, they're related to that the coming together, like you said. And and especially with the bank part, is that how this one little action, this one swipe, changed her life. And that's the thing I also find beautiful about the movement itself, is that this this one movie and wanting to release a cut has changed my life, has changed the lives of others. So this is how much power one has. And that's the Snyderverse's power. Like the title of the thing is the power of the Snyderverse mental health. This has changed so many lives. And like I want to, and like going on to Justice League and the themes is, I wanted to add like my favorite parts of those themes were, I think the most powerful one for me was Batman. Strangely, like even though he's a bad guy in Batman vs Superman, it's just the fact that he's able to grow and to change, and how this guy hated change. Like men are still good. Like we can change, we can grow, and that's something personal to me because I've been through rough points. I've done some questionable things, but I know I can grow. We can do better, you know. And also just, and one of my favorite themes in Justice League is that the coming togetherness. These outsiders, these people who felt alone, who felt they don't know their place in the world. And it's them coming together and uniting as one and saving the world is just beautiful. It's just giving purpose, which is something this movement has given to me and just changed my life. And I guess Flash too. Also, I always love that line. Is like, I need friends, and I just always related to that line there. And just, you know, Cyborg, I'm not broken, I'm not alone. It's just a beautiful line. Like you just cheer every time you say that. It's just, it touches you. And there's one last thing I wanted to add. It's just, yeah, on top of that personal affection, it's like the movement uniting, coming together, and you know, this whole togetherness is changing our lives and the way we are. We've grown as people, like how in the league they've all grown together throughout this entire 4-hour journey, and it's beautiful, and it's just so reflective of that.
Yeah, but I do agree with like the whole sense of like togetherness and finding your purpose. Is because like with Flash, like take the third act scene, you know, with the Speed Force stuff. You hear Barry say to himself, "Make your own future, make your own future, make your own past." Like doesn't let it define you. Like it's truly powerful right there. And then like with Bruce, his arc is truly beautiful to see. He like you said, he was a man that was broken, defeated. He literally, like he told Alfred back in BBS at the beginning of BBS, we have always been criminal, Alfred. And then to hear him say, I'm no longer operating on reasoning, I'm operating on faith. And Bruce said, faith, Alfred, faith. Like Ben, the line delivery of that line specifically is chilling because like you really see that he's a changed man due to Clark's sacrifice. And like, wow, it's just, that shows you just one person's impact can impact not just one, but so many others that we couldn't even know.
Exactly.
So, like that's the way I look at it with Zach. Like we all like, in one way or another, love his films, and now we're all together due to him and due to his family, due to his vision, and now we're all coming together. Basically, like how Jarrell said, in time they will join you in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, overall, that's what I think the movement, AFSP, the movement, AFSP, Zach, and the Snyders all basically, I think, mean to me, honestly.
Yeah, and like that quote, I can't remember it exactly, but like the Zack Snyder quote, powerful art can influence and cause change, and that's what this is all about, right? And that's the power of the Snyderverse. Like I remember when release the Snyder Cut was like, when you'd go on Twitter, you'd see latest, and the latest would be a day ago. And it's just, that's how small it was. Now it's like every 3 seconds that hashtag. And it's just crazy how this growth has been. And like this is why, like one of the reasons why I want to work with Spurp Shock is to kind of, not necessarily influence, but like open up that conversation of mental health, that we are here for a purpose, and these feelings, you're not alone in these feelings, and it's okay to talk, you know, talk about it. It's gonna help. And like that's the thing with Batman Superman too. Like, I don't know, it just, during a time where I was very lost, especially with school, social things, and my mind, and it just always helped me. It was there, and it just helped me through tough times, and I'm just so grateful for that.
Surprisingly, it was the first Wonder Woman movie that actually like said, wow, mankind is actually worth like living among and like trying to see the good. Because at the time I was struggling really bad. I was getting attacked left and right by this like toxic person that I used to be friends with. Like social life was not that great. I basically was still searching for my purpose in life and stuff still, and trying to find a drive to like worth living. And like for some reason, Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman, that film, like when the opening monologue that she does with the voiceover saying like when you see from within the great darkness, like you basically saying like how mankind was not really worth saving back then, and how she saw nothing but pure evil and darkness until she saw the light. And just to see like Diana, like she was a fish out of water. She didn't know nothing about the world of man, and basically she thought that Ares was the one just forcing all the decisions of like this evilness upon the world. And she saw that people were still willing to help and sacrifice themselves. Like that was truly like inspirational for me, and it made me wanted to change my outlook on life again. Like saying like, wow, like there's stuff to still worth fighting and living for, and thankfully and gratefully I'm still here and didn't give up and persevering through it and not alone, and have met all these wonderful, wonderful people that I'm truly grateful to have been in the presence of in the first place. And like AFSP is literally like truly a lifesaver. Like truly, like I am like truly grateful for AFSP. Like in case like if I ever felt down or anything, I know that I have this resource available to me. Like
Beautifully said. I really like the part on how Wonder Woman helped you during that during that moment in your life, and that giving up thing. Like there were times where during this, like because during my teenage years, I wanted to give up, and like, it was tough. But I think one thing that helps me to not give up was just the whole this. I know it sounds a bit like hyperbolic to say, but like this whole movement, these movies, like it gave me something, like when I was in those times of wanting to give up, I'd look and like one of the whole messages of the movement is like you're here for a purpose, and I'm just so grateful for everything. The movie Batman and Superman, especially because that was the one that really changed my life and got me out, helped me during some rougher times. Like I'm just so happy to have this community, this movie, and this attachment to these movies, on especially that. And that's really why this movement is so powerful, because it's kind of been the brighter side of my teenage years, and it's given me hope, optimism. It's given me something to love, and it's just like every time Zach posted something, that was like dopamine. Really, it was like every time he posted something on Twitter, I'm like, "Yo, this is crazy!" Like I'd be literally in a bad mood, and then I'd see that, and it's just like going back to, because I have OCD, so like I would obsess over that stuff of my dark stuff. But no, then I would obsess. Oh my god, what's this movie? I want to know this movie. How crazy what it has been, and that's the thing on that. And yeah, I mean, I think ending on a final note, it's just beautiful how these films have changed and influenced.
I think the perfect quote I think I would like to end on is from Ashley Zack Snyder's Justice League. Surprisingly, if even if it takes you the rest of your life to find out your purpose, you're here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like that stuck with me. Like when we heard it in the final trailer, it even made it more powerful knowing that it came directly from the First Flight 2.0. So yeah,
I started obsessing over that quote, and it's just beautiful. I've been actually quoting that to some people in my life, and I'm just saying, you're sitting here for a reason, Clark. And even if it takes you the rest of your life, you have to find out what they're saying. It's beautiful, and that's a great note to end this on. And I just want to thank you for coming on. I'm very grateful that that you were able to share these experiences, because it's not easy opening up about this stuff. But thankfully, these Justice League movies have made it these tough experiences easier, and added maybe some light into our lives. And it's incredible. Like regardless of whether people like the movies, it's just have such an impact on a vast population around the world.
yeah. I want to say thank you for inviting me. It always been ever since Justice Con happened last year, it's always been something I've really been wanting to be a part of, and thankfully you extended the invitation gracefully, and I accepted it because, like, honestly, like I said, just make me feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself, and I just want to say thank you for inviting me on and able to discuss this because, like, I do. I think obviously everyone know I take mental health very serious too. So to finally be able to open up about my own personal experiences to not just you and everyone else basically that will be listening and watching, it it truly hits home because like now we all like know a little bit more about each other and hopefully this will give everyone like space to want to continue to have these talks because it
Exactly.
truly is important and
Exactly.
that's why we fight for this
Hmm.
right. So
Why we fight, exactly. And yeah, I just want to hone in on exactly. We need to normalize this. We need to, uh, it's there are resources, right? There are resources. You can speak up. You're not alone. And yeah, I mean, thank you, and thank you. I'm very grateful that you accepted this, and I'm just extremely grateful for all of this. And I just want to thank the viewers also for, if you made it here to the end of this, thank you for watching this. I truly appreciate it, and I hope you have a takeaway from this, and I hope these films and this movement continues to influence you and the people to come, and looking in the history books, no, but looking in the overall history of the movement. Hopefully it has more of a positive influence to it. And yeah, just want to say thank you to everyone. And I guess before we end this area, any final words to add, or
I think I didn't ran out of words to say. Honestly,
the brain is all emptied out. So just want to thank you guys for coming and watching this video. Thank you so much. And remember, you are not broken and you are not alone.